Huge. That forehead crease was such an identifying characteristic. Now, this was from the video from the security cameras a month before in that test run case, that they were able to see a little bit more of that mysterious person behind the mask. And that crinkle in the forehead, it turns out that's a genetic trait. I don't know if, since viewing The Hour, if you started looking at people, but
police ultimately rule her out.
As you said, people do look at the partner or the spouse, the person closest to the victim. Tanya is there on the scene even before the responding
on his behavior when she wants nothing to do with him.
When he was pulled over for following Kenny, Milner told police, look, I'm the only one who really gives a blank, as he said to the officer at the time, and I'm not allowed to give, a blank. At that point, there had been issues between Tanya and Kenny Fandrich of domestic abuse. Stephen Milner really felt like he was the one that could save Tanya from what he felt could be a dangerous situation for her.
Now, one of the videos that we see in The Hour that kind of really touched me it's of Kenny. He's sitting on the back deck. He's really distraught. He's crashed his car after an argument with his wife, and he just looks so sad and heartbroken. What more do we know about this marriage and the problems they'd experienced?
Tanya and Kenny, they had struggled over the years. Alcohol typically came into play, according to Tanya, when there were these instances of domestic violence. It became something of a he said, she said. Tanya acknowledged their issues, and as I said, she was, very firm in saying this relationship with Stephen Milner happened years ago. It was in her past, and that she and Kenny Fandrich were really trying to work through all those issues.
And that perhaps goes to motive, but you need some sort of solid evidence. So then what ultimately allowed investigators to build their case against Milner?
Well, it really came down to, the good detective work, as we talked about, and following the maroon minivan trail. So Stephen Milner usually drove a white Toyota SUV, and once they seized the car, investigators were able to analyze the data on the computer within the car, and they noticed right before their very eyes.
It still amazes me just how often we were all on camera, right? But this is the first time that I've seen video as investigators sort of watched a key piece of evidence being destroyed. I'm sure they wanted to kind of like reach into the screen and just butt that vehicle out.
Yeah, unfortunately, they were a week too late, to get that vehicle. Had they gotten there a week earlier, they parking homicides, and it was a real breakthrough case for both of them because, you don't see a lot of murders in that area of Hillsboro, Oregon, and here you have this mysterious, such a suspicious case. It really came down to them chasing all the leads and knowing where to go.
And so, finally on January 13th, 2025, Stephen Milner, he is speaking with defense attorney Amanda Thibault. He's under direct examination, and here's what he has to say.
What happened next?
I jumped out towards it.
What happened next?
Then we basically fought for a little bit.
Okay. Can you describe that fight for me?
There was pushing and shoving, and I was kind of trying to push him back into his car.
Fandrich was a continued threat to Tanya because of the past abusive claims in their relationship. Now, the prosecutor, Mahaley Streblow, said that that testimony did not line up at all with the physical evidence at the scene. It goes against everything that they were able to piece together. But, I imagine that his defense attorney thought letting him take the stand and speak to his own defense and reasons for being there, perhaps if he could convince one jury member that, he was the guy who was really just there trying to do a good deed, trying to protect Tanya, and that it was Kenny Fandrich who came after him. All he needed to do was to convince one juror.
Clearly, the jury didn't buy his self-defense defense. Stephen Milner found guilty of murdering Kenny Fandrich and also found guilty of multiple stalking charges. He was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. But I think what's really sort of tragic about this is a couple that did everything right. They did everything that they were supposed to do, and they still were not protected.
You win some, and you lose some. With all winnings paid in cash.
There's about a 45-minute drive where he's going back and forth from Oregon City to Hillsboro, tracking Kenny Fandrich and following him as he went to work.
How is Tanya doing today?
Well, Tanya obviously has experienced a lot of loss in her life. No amount of money will make up for that. But Kenny's estate has a wrongful death suit against Stephen Milner. If any money is won, Tanya would stand to benefit. Kenny's estate is seeking damages of several millions of dollars. And reportedly, Stephen Milner sold his veterinary clinic years ago and apparently has an estimated net worth of several $1 million. But you can imagine she has to be shattered. She's a victim in this case. She was a stalking victim, and then her husband was murdered. So she is a victim on so many sides of this case.
Yeah, absolutely. You always sort of try to look for the lessons in all of these stories. I think if there is a lesson, it's that stalking behavior is not normal. Right? It's not something to be dismissed, and you should take it seriously.
Yeah, and certainly Tanya and Kenny